All right, Joel Gausten here from joelgausten.com. I've had some very active musicians and performers on my podcast as of late, but my next guest probably takes the number one spot as far as activity and productivity over the last several months. Took a couple swings at the bat to get him here, but I'm very glad that I have finally. Joining me from Romania, Mr. Ronnie Romero. Ronnie, great to see you. Thank you for being here.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure, my pleasure. For the viewer who may be new to you, I just wanted to kind of give a very quick resume as far as your performances in the past. You have fronted a variety of bands, including the Ferrymen, Oars in Black, MSG, Vandenberg, just name a few. And of course, you also fronted the most recent incarnation of Richie Blackmore's Rainbow. The main reason why we're connecting today is on Friday this week, you're releasing a new CD DVD collection live at Rock Imperium Festival, which is an event held in Spain. As I said, it comes out this Friday on Frontiers Music. It's a fantastic performance. So first, let me say how much I'm enjoying the new release. Very excited for you that that's coming out in a few days. First and foremost, you're somebody who performs all over the world. I mean, you're constantly active. What made this particular venue and event the right one for you to record for an official live release?
Well, it is a special festival for me. I'm a good friend with the promoter, and actually, I would say, and we could agree with the promoter also that this festival is started to happen in 2019 because of the Rainbow Show we did in the first edition when it was called Rock the Coast before the pandemic. The promoter he was chasing Rainbow to take it to Spain to do a show. So since we are good friends, he was talking to me. I did some lobby also for him. I talked to the management. I talked to Richie about Spain, and so when they agreed to do a show in Spain with this promoter, Richie said, I don't want to do just a solo show. I want to be in a festival. So this promoter needed to create this festival around the Rainbow Day. So he was always very grateful with me because all the work we did together to bring Rainbow to Spain, and so last year when he was doing the new edition of the festival, they changed the name, they changed the venue, they changed the place where they are doing the festival, and he offered me a really good slot in the main stage. I think we were playing right before Uriah Heep in the main stage. So I thought it would be a cool opportunity to shoot the show, and we didn't know at that time that we're gonna release it anyway. So I thought it maybe just to have some cool material for the future. But then the excitement came because I announced that the show is gonna be recorded, and everybody liked that. So we decided with Frontiers to release it as a DVD and live album.
Fantastic. And one of the things I love about it is it really serves to illustrate the power of your soul material on your most recent studio album. Now it came out with, I guess maybe 18 months, 2 years ago at this point. Too Many Lies, Too Many Masters. Spoken like somebody who's in the music industry as a title. But the majority of the live set is comprised of songs off of that album, which is kind of interesting for you because although it's your third solo album under your own name, it's the first time you had written original material for an album. The previous two releases were covers collections, if I have that correct. So, you've been at this a long time. You fronted a number of bands, many of which are prominent acts. How would you say the experience of fronting someone else's machinery maybe informed you as to how to approach when the time came doing your own material on your own steam?
Yeah, that was a logical step for me. As you say, I was fronting others people's band for so many years. Uh, which I'm very grateful, of course, because all of the gigs I did gave me the chance to be somebody on the music industry, especially Rainbow when I joined the band 2015. Um, and then I was doing Vandenberg, I was doing Michael Schenker for 3, 4 years also. And then I got to a point as a musician where I was feeling in a comfort zone in terms of, it's easy just to go on tour without taking care of anything, just, going on tour, getting paid, and your name and your reputation is not 100% in the bill, because it's another people's name. And um, I was getting too comfortable in that situation, so I wanted to take a risk. I think on the creativity side, also it gave me a punch, to do something by myself, to write my own music, to be part of the production process, um, and you to take the risk at the end to see what it could be, that if the people's going to be interested really, or everybody's praising that because I am playing with Richie Blackmore or with Michael Schenker, I'm a cool guy, but what if I do my own stuff, if the people are going to be interested or not. um, so I think I was very excited at that moment, and I decided to step out from Michael Schenker because of that, and I say, okay, I'm gonna start to build my own path. And as you say, this live album is totally a representation of the risk I took doing this, and I think it's cool because I built this band as a not the typical modern rock band where you are not together writing with the rest of the musicians, or you're not recording together, or then you use backing vocals for the shows, and you use backing tracks, and you use clicks and all this stuff. I really wanted to get back to the roots.
Mm.
And so even the creative process, it was like in the old days, all together writing, all together recording, and to bring it up, kind of a more organic sound to the album. And I wanted to put that on the live album. I wanted to show that we are a real band,
Yeah.
that we are five guys playing on a stage without gadgets or without any other technological support besides or talent. And that's what I think that's what you can hear on the record.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Going back earlier in your solo endeavors, I believe it was your first covers album, Raised on Radio.
Hmm.
I just recently had Russ Ballard on the podcast. So I wanted to mention Russ because you cover a Russ Ballard tune on that first record. You cover Voices, which are, it's a classic song. And, Russ is a much beloved songwriter who's written, classic upon classic. What led you to choose Voices to go with on that first album?
Well, the main thing on those two covers albums, it was to do songs that the people they don't expect. When we were talking about the songs, I was like, I don't want to do the typical, Rainbow Dio songs that the people probably it's gonna wait for, or so we were looking way more deep into into my influences catalog. And obviously Russ Ballard is there, and we thought that that could be a good song to do like a rock or more rock version than the original. And that was it. There was always a connection with Russ, obviously because of this Rainbow connection with I Surrender and Since You Be Gone.
Right.
um, and and it was a cool thing because I met him once. He was invited to a Rainbow show in London in 2017, I think it was. um, and then I wanted to pay tribute to him because he's one of my influences doing that voices. And since then we're friends. And actually the very cool thing is, it's on my next solo album is we co-wrote a song together. So you know, it's like a closing the circle.
Fantastic. And on this upcoming live album, there's a very significant cover. because you do a rendition of Rainbow in the Dark, Ronnie James Dio. Um, and there are so many Dio songs one can choose from to cover, particularly off those first two Dio band albums. Was there any particular reason why Rainbow in the Dark stood out for you as the one to go with on this
Yeah, I
performance?
mean, considering that the set and the songs we played, besides the Ferrymen songs, which was a different story, but the 80% of the songs is a set we've been playing for more than a year together with the band, presenting Too Many Lives, Too Many Masters. And though we always played some Dio Rainbow songs, we have in the set Kill the King and Stargazer, and we play Stand Up and Shout and some others. I always found that Rainbow in the Dark, it was very representative from Ronnie James Dio, and the people, they really participate and enjoy when we play that song, because there is a part where we interact with the audience. Um, so I thought it would be a very cool way to close the act, doing that, and singing all together with the people.
Absolutely. Staying on Dio for a moment, unfortunately, he had passed before I started, doing a variety of things I'm doing now. But that said, with this interview today with you, I've now interviewed all surviving frontmen of Rainbow. So I've gotten all of you now. And I find your particular tenure interesting because I think in many ways, Ronnie had the easiest job as a frontman in Rainbow because he set the template and, all of you kind of had to follow that.
Right.
Um, so by the time you started working with Richie, there was this history of fantastic frontmen. Certainly Ronnie, Graham, Joe Lynn, Doogie. I mean, we're talking stellar frontmen and stellar singers. So when you came in, what was the challenge or what was the experience like for you to not only come in and honor what had come before you with these great performers, but also put your stamp on it and be Ronnie Romero fronting Rainbow while also balancing, these classic moments from all these very distinct front men that came before you.
Yeah, that's exactly the challenge, and that was exactly the challenge, because as you say, I will never even to attempt to try to get to that level. We're talking about singers, and especially Ronnie, who I would say he created that kind of sound for and that kind of path for rock singers and heavy metal singers. So is probably the godfather of singers in terms of interpretation, and that kind of voice, and that kind of aggressiveness on the way of he was singing. Also with Joe, with Graham, with Gillian, because we were doing the Purple songs, also with Coverdale, all those guys.
Hmm.
Uh, for me, it was from the beginning. It was not trying to. I don't think the people, they will love to see a carbon copy of a guy doing just trying to do a copy of the original singers. So for me, it was always like a little space, a little gap in between of I will try to go as close as possible to the original, respecting the original singer, but also I need to put my own interpretation and my own performance. So for me, it was the people, they don't want to see a copy, but also they don't want to hear something so different, right? Because the rainbow, especially the rainbow songs with Dio, they are so deep in the head of the people that if you go too separate, they just don't like it.
Hmm.
So for me, there was a little gap in between where I can go close to the original, but also putting my own stuff. It doesn't and not sounding weird, for anybody. So there is a lot of people to please in a little space. So it was a challenge, but it was fun. At the end, it was fun because obviously Richie gave me all the confidence to do it in my own way,
Hmm.
and I try to do my best, paying tribute to all those singers.
Yeah, well, I'll say as a Rainbow fanatic, your interpretation and your particular era of the band, I really loved. When I had heard that Richie was coming back with the band and that you were the singer, I will admit I didn't know who you were at the time. Um, but you really won me over. I thought that particular version had a lot of power to it. And, there's always the big question, what's the new guy going to sound like? Because we've
Right.
had such a variety in the past. I think Richie made the right choice with you. I thought you honored it fantastic. Probably somebody who gave equal amounts to all the past material, and that's really what was necessary. So it's been a real pleasure watching your trajectory since that time and what you've been doing, which kind of leads me to the rest of this year because, well, I mean, 2025 as a whole so far, we're only, five and a half, roughly, yeah, 5.5 months
Yeah,
into it.
almost
And
there. Yeah.
the Ferrymen put out an album I wanted to mention that came out in January, Iron Will, a fantastic album. You have this upcoming live release later this week. I also understand that you and Richie Faulkner are back at it. There's a new Elegant Weapons release underway. Where are we in terms of that album being finished?
I think it's pretty much recorded. I did the vocals like a month ago. We finished with the vocals, and I think actually this week I need to come back to the studio because there's a couple of things that we need to add to a couple of songs, but just some details. And it's pretty much done. I guess once the guys they get back from the Priest tour because Andy is the producer also. Um, so once they get back, they're gonna start with the mixing and all the stuff. There is no release date yet because of this, because Richie is very busy right now with Judas Priest. But I would say that the album is pretty much almost done, and it's a fantastic album. It's different from the first one in terms of it sounds like it sounds like more like an elegant weapon than the first one, I would say.
Hmm.
um, because the four musicians we were touring the first album, we recorded this one, and we spent more time on the songwriting process, especially for the lyrics and the vocal lines and harmonies and all this stuff than before. So my input it's bigger this time, and it's as I said before, it's a kind of a evolution of the band. It's gonna sound this is us 3 years after, and I think it's great songs. Richie is a fantastic guitar player, so I think it's gonna be a great album.
Fantastic. And you mentioned Russ Ballard. You and
Yeah.
Russ are working together. So where do things stand currently with what will ultimately be your next solo record? Where are we at
Well,
the
the album is also almost done. We're on the mixing process right now, but almost finished, and it's going to be delivered very soon to the record label. And so I guess by the end of the year, it's gonna be the release date, around November probably. Um, and also, it's an album that I feel really proud because again, I was working in all the songs with the guys, and we have a really couple of cool guests doing some solos in two songs. Some people that some great musicians that the people they don't expect that they're gonna be on the record.
Mm.
Uh, is they are not there's no people that I work at really before with them, but they are good friends. So when I asked them to do a couple of, they're guitar players, so when I asked them to do a couple of solos, they were up for it immediately. And also because I wrote this song with Russ Ballard, that for me is fantastic. As you say at the beginning, Russ such a fantastic songwriter. So when I asked him, I want to have a song from you in my record, and then he asked me, "What do you want?" And I say, I want something like this. We were talking about his catalog, and I say, I want something like this, something which is rock, but it can sound on the radio. And he said, okay. And then a couple of weeks after, he sent me a demo, and then we were working on that. And it's a fantastic song. I think that people are gonna love it.
Excellent, excellent. So potentially we're looking at maybe four releases this year or three at the very least. So, very busy 2025. Um, One thing I've noticed about your work in particular, but a lot of artists on frontiers, let's say, is the work really seems to translate incredibly well overseas. I'm in the States,
Mhm.
but I know when any sort of, maybe non-US territory, we'll call it, it has always been very receptive to this style of music. Frontiers obviously is in Italy, and there's a lot of excitement and fervor for this particular genre of music overseas. Having toured it so much at this point, what do you think it is about that genre that seems to appeal so much to, we'll call it the European audience and sensibility?
Well, I think one of the most important things about Frontiers and all the artists they sign, and this is a very important thing to be signed by the record label. It's is obviously the honesty doing music. We tend to not, in my case, for example, as I told you before, I tend to not to cheat on the songwriting and on the recording, and it's very honest music. And there is a kind of a, I will say there is a kind of a comeback as it happens with vinyls some years ago when everybody started to buy vinyls again. And there is a kind of a comeback of organic, honest music. It doesn't matter the style. I mean, Frontiers they have a kind of a guide. This is hard rock, sometimes more melodic, sometimes a little bit more heavy, but still very honest and very organic music. And I think the audiences in general, not only the US or in Europe, they started to miss that. There is too much disco metal,
Mhm.
which I mean, for me, it's okay. I have nothing to say about it. It's not criticism, but we were getting to a point where the image and the beat it was more important than the song itself and the music itself. It was more important to have fireworks and big screens and to use a costume, to be a successful band. And for me, because I grew up listening not also British rock bands like Deep Purple and Led Zeppelin, but also because my father, rest in peace, he was a huge fan of American rock bands like like Kansas, Boston, Journey, and many others. And there is a kind of a comeback of the people they want to see just and they want to hear just five guys with their instruments playing music. You know, there is a kind of a comeback on that.
Mhm.
Um, and I would say all the musicians in all the bands in Frontiers we have that. We are just people writing music for the fun of doing it, and we are honest, and we are it sounds organic. So I think the people they're starting to like that again.
Yeah, I think the right people understand that, and that's why so many of those acts have the audiences they do. There's a purity to it. It's not trendy music. So if you have an audience under your own steam within that world, it's because you've earned it. It's because of that honesty. It's not because it's
Yeah,
a sort of flavor of the week. I mean, this is very traditional rock and roll in the vast degree of Frontiers releases. But I wanted to wrap up with this. Like I said, I first heard of you, as many people did, when you got the Rainbow gig.
yeah,
You had been working before then, and you've certainly worked since those days. We just rattled off, four potential releases by the end of the year, just for a 12-month
yeah,
period. So you're doing things on your own steam. You've had your own bands, but you're also that guy who does get the call from Blackmore or Michael Schenker or Adrian Vandenberg, and it's not easy to do that in this business. You really have to hold on tight in a lot of ways to maintain that kind of momentum. So, it's been a pretty active, at least 15 years for you in that respect.
yeah.
What's been the key to making that work? What do you think it is that has enabled you to not only maintain your own solo existence and have an audience and have a live album like this, but also be that guy who in the past has consistently gotten the calls
Yeah.
where, those kind of calls aren't as particularly common among some other singers out there. What's been the trick for you, you think?
Well, I will say it again. It's for me is the honesty. You know, I never tried, and I never pretend to be somebody that I'm not, or to do something that I can't. Actually, I'm pretty aware that there is so many great singers around that they could do the same thing or even better than me in so many ways. I don't consider myself the best of the best, or just because I play with Richie, I'm a great or fantastic singer. I just do what I can when what I love, and I think because of that, I got a very smooth uh, process and career doing the stuff I was doing. I started in a band, and I was amateur, and then we got signed by Frontiers when I joined Rainbow. Then I joined Rainbow. I did many shows with Richie, and then Michael calls me, and then I did an album with Vandenberg that didn't work, uh, unfortunately. But everything was doesn't feel it was forced. Now we're gonna do this because the people. It's a logical business step. I was always outside that. I'm doing what I love, as a rock fan. My way of thinking is, feeling as a rock fan, as a totally normal guy who just want to do what he loves. And I think the most of the people, they got that, and that's why they support the music I do, and they support the things I did before. Yeah, this is the guy who was playing with Richie Blackmore, and that should be enough for any singer, right? uh, but then also you get the call from Michael Schenken. How can you say no to Michael, right? But then I understood the moment when it was enough, and I need to do something by myself. And for me, it was very natural. It's a very natural decision, and I think the people, they got it in the same way. So it was like, yeah, he was playing with Rainbow, he was playing with Michael Schenker, he was playing with these other guys, uh, but now we want to see him doing something by himself. And so for me, it was very natural, and I think everything comes from the how honest you are with yourself first.
Absolutely. And I'm in that category. As much as I loved you fronting Rainbow, I was always looking forward to what you'd be doing next, and maintain a forward momentum. I think you've really arrived in a great place, not just with your most recent solo record, but this new live album, which again for the viewer is live at Rock Imperium Festival out this Friday on Frontiers. I will include all pertinent links in the video description for people to check that out. And it's nice to finally have you here. Like I said, we tried a couple of times. I know you're super busy, which is a wonderful dilemma for a working musician to have right now. The fact there are so many things that you're juggling. So I hope you keep doing that, man. I hope you maintain this busy schedule for many years. Looking forward to what you and Russ come up with. Very excited about that. Until our paths cross again, just the very best of luck to you with this new live release.
Thank you.
Thank you for the music that's already come. I can't wait to hear what comes next. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of it, and it's all going to be great. So I thank you again for taking some time to be on the podcast. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.